put their hands together to welcome Keiran.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. Cool. Well, thank you. As I said, I'm Keiran. Let me just check this is working. And yes, I'm from businesssales.com.au though. We don't have the .com just yet. Tomorrow. So this is Business Sales, and we exist to streamline the process of buying and selling a small business. I also have two co-founders who are here today. I've got Keiran James and Shane Fox, but they don't have the microphone. So I can confirm that I'm the best looking and the funniest. But seriously, between us, we've got about 30 years experience full-time helping small business owners to buy and sell businesses. We've also bought and sold a couple of our own businesses, but that's another story. So why did we decide to be in to do this? Why small businesses? Well, collectively we love small business, we love small business owners. As many of you would probably know, small business takes a whole bunch of guts, a whole bunch of determination, it's a lot of hard work. But it's also incredibly important for the Australian economy. It makes up 98% of all businesses. Small businesses employ about 5 million people. It's about 33% of GDP. But more than that, small businesses for us are the heart of the community. But for me, as I stand today, I'm married, I've got 2.5 kids. Well, my wife's 35 weeks pregnant. And I still remember our first date at Three Monkeys on Derby Street, upstairs, and it's those kinds of little stories. I'm sure you've all got stories of how small businesses have had an impact on you personally. And so we think this is a great place to kind of work with small business owners. When you ask them about how to sell a small business, typically you hear words like opaque or confusing or swear words. And so we thought that this is an opportunity to build something to help, because small business owners deserve a better process, especially when you consider that for most of them, their small business is their largest asset. So that's kind of why we built Business Sales. It is not just like another business for sale website, it's an end-to-end platform. And so to kind of explain what that means, well, we sometimes say that business sales is like car sales, but for businesses. But the truth is that selling a business isn't really like selling a car at all. If you have a car, you don't really care who comes and has a look at it, does an inspection. Whereas if you've got a business, you probably don't want your largest competitor to come along and have a look at your client list. So we have detailed buyer profiles. That means that you know exactly who you're talking to, why they're interested in your business, what their skills and their backgrounds are before you give them access to your confidential information. And when you do that, we have a inbuilt confidentiality deed, and that means that all of the information that you provide them is protected, and that's just the default for everyone who uses the platform. From there, when you share like a P&L or a lease or any kind of financial information, every page of that is watermarked with the buyer's name and their email address and when they've accessed it. Because fun fact, it turns out that buyers are a lot less likely to take a screenshot and share confidential information if it has their name on it. Who would have thought? And so that's probably not, all of those features, all that hard work leads to reviews like this one, which is great service, sold the business in less than 30 days for the full asking price. Or this recent sale where the owner described the service as bloody brilliant. Or this one, I really like. We built an integration with an AI tool to help people write their own ads, and yeah, this is a review from a professional business broker who said, "Thanks so much for this amazing tool, made a massive difference to them." This is probably a good time to mention business brokers. One of the questions I get asked all the time is, will business sales replace business brokers? Our answer to that is absolutely not. It's like the same way that Xero hasn't replaced accountants. Brokers, in our view, provide a professional, personalised service, and that's not going away. The difference is that we hope that in the next 14 years, kind of back in the day, you used to have to take your shoebox full of receipts into your account, and then they'd be punching away on the calculator. Now we have data feeds and single touch payroll, and the whole process is a lot smoother, but you still get expert advice from an accountant, and we think it'll be the same in business brokerage. So we don't think that brokers are going to go away. It's a question we get all the time, and yeah, we don't think that's the case. It's just going to make the whole process smoother. But that's probably enough about us and the nitty-gritty of the platform. Most of you are here because you've got your own startups or businesses. So I thought I'd go into how we actually built Business Sales as opposed to why and what it does. And like most startups, we started with customer research. So we wanted to, even though we had plenty of experience and been doing this for a very long time, we still hired an external company to interview some buyers and some sellers for us. One of the things, and then we also spoke to some business brokers. So we spoke to the former president of the Australian Institute of Business Brokers. We spoke to a 3-time National Business Broker of the Year. We spoke to a valuer. But if you check out our bios, you can probably see the problem with that. We did not do enough customer research in the broker market, which we'll come back to later. Because as you can see, that's just us. So buying the domain, we get this question all the time. How did we end up buying businesssales.com.au? Obviously, somebody had thought to register that before we did. So this is how we did it. The first step was we did an outer search. So it's a free search. It tells you who owns the domain. From there, you get the ASIC, the ACN, the ABN. So we put that into an ASIC search. That cost $9. That gives you the directors' names, their addresses, and their dates of birth. From there, we went Facebook stalking, found them pretty quickly, got their phone numbers, and we cold called them. One of the things we did is we didn't tell them that we wanted to buy the domain. We told them we wanted to buy the whole business. And fortunately, the price for the business was fine by us. So we bought the whole business, and the whole thing took less than a month. It was great. From there, we went into building the website. So we don't have any like technical expertise. None of us are computer science graduates or anything like that. So we hired an agency to actually write all the code for us. We did look at a like off-the-shelf kind of platform. You know, you can buy these like template websites like a Squarespace or something like that. It wasn't customizable enough for us. Didn't do everything that we needed to, so we got it custom built. We also hired another company to do the design. And so it's pretty and looks nice, but also it's like makes sense from the user experience point of view. And that was really important to us, that it made that the flows that kind of made sense for people who wanted to use it. We have a big say in the features of how they're built and what they do and how, everything like that. But as to how we make them work for users, that's where we get those experts to do that for us, and it's been good. So you've probably all seen this chart before. This is kind of very much our experience. We launched the website and we were all pumped up, really excited. We were flying everywhere, meeting with business brokers, getting listings on. It was all good. And then we started to get user feedback. And the feedback we got most often from brokers was, this takes way too long. So we built it to answer every single possible question you could ever think about with a business. And so as a result, you had to enter all that information, which took a really long time to get a listing actually live. So pretty quickly, we plowed into the trough of sorrow and started rebuilding huge portions of our website. Fortunately for us, we were in the I2N Accelerator by this point, so so we had some good people around us who were able to kind of help us understand some of our assumptions and why those assumptions weren't valid, but also one of the things that another mistake we made in this process was we didn't just have assumptions, then we asked pretty crappy questions that reinforced those assumptions, and so then we were like, yes, we've validated this, but really we just reinforced our own assumptions. Which leads me to this book. If you take anything out of today, buy this book, read it. It absolutely changed the way that we ask questions, and as a result of that, we've been able to rebuild what we needed to make the platform a lot better for users, for brokers. And so today we have 601, it's actually 602, we got another one last night, Richo. Listings live, we've got that 1700's way out of date. The number of buyers and sellers connecting continues to go up, and we're getting great feedback on the platform as a result of asking better questions and solving the right problems. That's probably enough about all of that. But I just wanted to say, if you do have like specific questions about small business or how the platform works, or you want to know more about it, I'm in the I2N Slack channel, so feel free to like ask me questions directly, or if you've got a question about a small business, like what's it worth or anything, and you want to keep it confidential, feel free to send me a message. You don't have to ask me in front of everyone, and I'm more than happy to help. But
You know, you guys didn't, when Ian and Shane came into the Accelerator last year, you certainly didn't seem like you were in the trough of sorrow. You were very jubilant and happy. And
it's about week 2. Yeah, we're pretty positive people, but I think the boys agree. We spent many months rebuilding features, cost us many thousands of dollars to rebuild our process that we massively over-engineered. I will say, like, we have been able to salvage some of that. Like, so we built a certified Xero application. So that means that when you say if you use Xero as your accounting software, all of your P&L data you can just seamlessly import, so you don't have to enter it in. And so we're repurposing that, but yeah, we thought that would be like a feature that everyone took up on day one, and yeah, it didn't work like that.
They've taken some of it up somewhat.
Yeah, so there's been some take up, but like, I mean, I guess in our experience, there's always like a curve of how much people engage with specific features. So we thought that one would be really popular. It turns out to be, it's okay, it's moderately popular. But we repurposed that into we're building a tool that helps calculate like what's your business worth. And so that, having that, being able to connect to Xero, which was like a massive project, a huge amount of development, and then certification. You have to prove to Xero that you do the right thing with the data, that it's secure, that all of that. And so there's this whole process of proving to Xero that we were able to do all of that. That's massively helped when we're now trying to help like build a business value calculator. But yeah, initially we definitely didn't need that to launch, but we had it.
You got it now.
Yeah. We did not need that for launch.
And it's exciting to see from your entry into the Accelerator and the growth that the team has seen from just the business listings number. Like, for example, Keiran sent the slides through earlier this week for this particular deck, and then maybe 3-4 hours later, I got another email from Keiran saying, "Oh no, we've just had another business list. Here's the updated business number slide."
Yeah,
and it's always going up.
Yeah, so we're up. Like we had. So what I sent that to you. I think it was 2 days ago, maybe yesterday. Yeah. And like I checked, we have a live counter on the website, and so wake up, check the live counter. It's up like 20 odd connections overnight. So yeah, it's really. So we've recently hired a marketing company, and that's definitely. And so they're doing like Google Ads, pay per click, that kind of thing. Helped. That's definitely helping. Yeah. Our website traffic is running at about 20 to 30% month-on-month growth, which is pretty good.
Cool.
We're pretty happy with that.
So we've got a business-related question from Joanna. What were some of the earliest lessons learned when building a marketplace platform?
Hey, good question. I don't know. I think early on was like, to be honest, it probably took us a little bit longer than it should have to learn. But I think coming back to actually being really clear on the problem that you're solving for customers. In the mum test, there's this, they say like, don't ask questions like would you use this, which is what we did. It was like, what we should have been asking was, how do you currently solve this problem? And then how much does it cost you? And so that gives you a much better frame of reference into what you're going to build. Because if we'd asked people, and we eventually did ask, like, we thought that the Xero application would be used for X, Y, and Z. And we said, how do you do that? I just send an email. It's not too inconvenient. Like, okay. And so I think, so that would be, I guess it wasn't an early lesson in how we built the marketplace, but I wish we knew that earlier.
Bradley's asked a really good question. He's a postgrad student at the uni. How's your solution better than existing alternatives, and how do you protect your business from competitors? What's your moat?
Sure. So in a marketplace or a network business, the moat is the amount of people that we can connect. Because we have so much website traffic, we can connect people faster. One of the metrics we track internally is how many businesses each buyer inquires on. Because if you kind of think about it, if you went to buy a cafe in Newcastle, for example, and you had one listed, well, you might inquire on that one. But if you have 10, the same buyer might inquire on a few. And so we track that. So that's, I guess, how we protect against competitors. There's always going to be competitors. The main thing that we do differently is, how in the weeds do you want to go?
You got 3 minutes.
All right, let's go into the weeds. So most of the competitor platforms are built on a real estate-based architecture. And so that means that you have to put a listing in a suburb. And I use this example. If you said, I want to sell a paint shop in Toronto, in about 3 seconds on Google Maps, I know who that is, because there's one. But if you said, I want to sell a paint shop in Lake Macquarie, there's like 50 of them. And so you can't, as a buyer, it's probably okay, right? Like, it's still in Lake Macquarie, you can still get an idea of where the business is. And so that's one of the things that we do differently is we completely rebuilt how location works, because confidentiality is really important when you sell a business. If you've got staff and those staff find out that the business is for sale, they can freak out, like, what's going to happen to my annual leave? What's going to happen to my long service leave? What if the new owner's a jerk? And then they spend all their time, instead of actually doing the work, they spend all their time worrying, freaking out. The proverbial water cooler conversation. Business performance can go down, which has a negative impact on the value. In the worst case, your good staff leave, your bad staff stay, and so I guess our main thing, and that this is something we got right early on from all our experience, is that we knew that confidentiality was the most important thing. And so that's the thing that we do way different to everyone else, is buyer profiles, confidentiality, data rooms, location. Everything we have built makes a business more confidential.
You've thought about it from the perspective of the customer, basically.
Yeah, and it's not a rebadged platform.
Yes, it's not realestate.com for businesses.
No, it's not, and it's certainly not Gumtree for businesses, which is a real thing.
So the next question's from Kathy Zontos, who's asked, I've started my business with the intention to sell up. What do I need to have, and what would be a forecast as to when the business will be ready to sell? So this is actually a really good topic to touch on, which is, what's your exit strategy? Did you go into the business with an exit strategy? Should you have one? Do you want to elaborate on yours?
Well, our strategy is to build a great marketplace that helps buyers and sellers and then never sell it. I guess if you are building something with the intention of selling, the main thing that's going to be valuable is like your customers, right? Or from a buyer's point of view, they're going to want to know or kind of want to manage the risk. So anything that you can do in your business that makes it less risky for a buyer to take over is going to make that a smoother transition, or a better business to buy. So that could be like documenting all your procedures, having staff who can manage the business, take a 3-week holiday, and if the whole thing collapses, then you've probably got some work to do. But yeah, I guess it's hard to say without knowing the specific business, right? Like if you've got a physical bricks and mortar setup, like a cafe, that's going to be a very different answer to if you've got an online business, which again is very different to if you've got like a print manufacturing workshop or a services business. So it's send me a message in the I2N Slack and we can talk.
You can go into it.
Yeah.
Sarah Wallace, who's from Scripts and a mentor in the Accelerator and our BMS program, has asked, how important do you think your industry experience, or your team's industry experience alongside yours, has been when setting up business sales?
Boys, I think you'd agree, critical. Yeah. I don't think we could have done anything like what we've done without that knowledge. Knowing the very nuanced detail of and I gave the example of the location. As an outsider, I would have no clue. I wouldn't know that about most of the industries that you guys are in. I'm sure there's specific nuances that we would have no idea. So yeah, I think it was absolutely critical that we knew intimately, day in, day out, in the weeds, how does this actually work in order to build something that is useful for the...
that expertise and really, really concentrated knowledge gives you the ability to carve out the niche, right?
Yeah. And even talking with our developers, there was many conversations where it's well, what if we did it this way? It's no, you don't understand that will have this weird second order consequence for a business seller way over here in this industry. We can't do it like that. And so, yeah, we wouldn't have had that knowledge, or it would have been so time consuming to acquire all that knowledge, and we would have made so many more mistakes. I've talked about our mistakes, and I don't know, I feel like it's interesting to talk about them. We've got a lot of things right, but you don't learn anything from the things that we did right. That's just us patting ourselves on the back. So I think, the industry knowledge was super critical.
Shannon Sullivan from Responder has asked, how much time and energy did you spend trying to refine the platform and functionality as opposed to just putting something out there on the market?
We probably spent a good it's probably 8 or 9 months building the platform before we took it live. So we spent a good deal of time thinking about that. I guess we spent a lot of time kind of with a bit of paper on our boardroom table, drawing out what does this look like, what are the flows like, what questions do we want to ask, when do we want to ask them, And that was all before like we paid anyone to start writing code. So it's so much easier to design on a piece of paper because you can cross it out and start again. Then with code, it's more expensive, particularly for us who, like, we're not professional developers. I'm pretty handy, but we still have professional developers for that kind of thing. So yeah, we spent a fair bit of time on that. Having said that, there's nothing like user feedback, right? Actually, Matt's just walked into the room. Matt was a mentor in the I2N program, and we had this like very specific flow when you're completing a buyer profile, and it was really slow. We noticed it was like 50-60% completion. So we talked about that with Matt, and he recommended some changes, and it got us to 90% or 95% conversion on that form. So that's a huge tick up and a massive benefit to the platform. So I would say, like, it is important to spend some time upfront to get it right, but also once you get it out into the wild, you learn so much faster. You can have all these great ideas, but nothing works like actual users on your website that tell you things.
Break things.
Yeah, and then we would just get. One of the things that we did is like made our email addresses really easy to find. And so like every email that goes out is from me, and it has like you reply to, it comes to me. And so we'd get messages, hey, this is not working properly. And another advantage of being in the industry for so long is that we knew a lot of brokers, and so we can just like ring them up. We've got like the CEO of the biggest 10 firms, personal mobile numbers, so we just called them and we're like, "Wait, what do you reckon?" So getting that feedback was really helpful.
Definitely. So we've got some challenge-related questions submitted by people who are registered. And Bridget kicks us off with her question of, if you could go back and do anything different, what would it be?
I would make our listing form way faster.
You just want throughput of people putting content on the website.
Yeah, I think it's more like the quick win, right? Like getting people to that first milestone of, if you're going to sell a business, like I don't know anyone that thinks, I've got way too much time on my hands. And so being able to get the first step done quickly is super important. We've noticed like the time that it takes people to create a listing is lower ever since we integrated like an AI tool that can write the ad for you. So you put in like your location, your industry, a few highlights, and it'll write a 400-word ad for you. And people always, you can see it, you edit it still, but it's so much easier to edit something than it is to stare at a blank page. That's been a big win.
Blank canvas is a hard thing to look at.
Yeah.
So Alicia Jones, who's a member of our incubator upstairs and from the CFO Centre, has asked, what were the obstacles, or maybe the biggest obstacles, you needed to overcome to get the business initially off the ground?
Sure. I mean, outside of like, paying developers, it's pretty boring. I think the biggest thing in the marketplace is that we needed, you need more listing. Like if you have listings, then buyers will come and they'll inquire on them, and the more buyers you have, the more listings you get, and that's like that virtuous circle of more buyers, more sellers, more buyers, more sellers, right? So the biggest obstacle was overcoming that initial hurdle. There's a book called The Cold Start Problem, kind of goes into different ways to handle this. If you do have to solve this problem, if you're building a marketplace, you will have to. So we relied on some just like straight up like sales. So we just, because of our, Ian is he's the former president of the Australian Institute of Business Brokers. So when the former president calls you up and says, "Hey, do you want to put some listings on my new site?" Like that's a pretty good conversation. That opened a lot of doors for us to get initial listings onto the site. And so the biggest obstacle was solving that problem, which we did there's other strategies that we didn't do. Like one of them is you can fake listings. We never wanted to do that because it like Uber is famous for like putting little car graphics on the screen to represent cars, even if there wasn't a car in that specific location. But we didn't want to create like fake businesses, right? Because that just wastes everyone's time, and it would be like, it's a bad experience. So we didn't do any of that. We just thought, just essentially tried to get listings first, and then got buyers to come and from there. So
that's a really good point. Like the cold start problem has heaps of suggestions, and there's lots of books out there that you'll go through that have heaps of suggestions, lots of case studies that make heaps of references to different things. And it's important to understand the limitations of your business and the advantages of your business as to what advice you take. So businesses are far less liquid than a car ride down the road. So you can't just fake. It's a better idea not to fake listings, because people's emotional drive or emotional attachment to the purchase is much higher than their ride to the pub or home from the pub or something.
Yeah, and the consequences too, right? Like if you inquire on a business that turns out to be fake, and the way we do it is we intentionally slow the process down of inquiring. On other websites, you can essentially just fire off like 10 inquiries in 5 minutes, because all you got to do is name, email address, phone number, right? Which you can autofill with Google Chrome. So you're like bang, 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 firing all these things out, and then you get like the boys have probably got many more stories of this, but essentially that you go, oh yeah, you inquired on my business. Oh, which business was that? Come on, like you're not interested, right? So we wanted to have quality over quantity. So we made that process slower. Like, all right, you want to inquire on this business? Well, why? What do you like about it? Tell me. And so all of that, like if you did that for a fake business, like and you're just wasting all my time going, oh yeah, this business looks really good, like I really want to buy it, and then it turns out it's just fake. Well, that'd be, I think people would rightly say business sales sucks if we did that kind of thing. So yeah, we wouldn't do that.
Yeah. Glenn Downey, who is your mentor in the program and a mentor within our BMS program and from the Mulby Group, has asked, what has been the biggest progress or the biggest win since you completed the Accelerator program?
Well, that's a good question. I think we've probably had a few, like just the listing growth. At this stage, that's probably one of the things that we track most is listing growth. Also feedback. We started asking users for like NPS style feedback, and that's all been really positive. So yeah, I think the biggest progress is probably said like we made a few of our forms and our flows faster, so it's faster to list a business, it's faster to complete a buyer profile, it's faster to do a few things, and that has been really good for positive for I guess the health of the business as we measure it.
And our final question before we break out to questions from the audience: a number of people who have registered for today's startup stories are applying for this year's Accelerator program. So apps have actually closed on Sunday night, and it was excellent. We had lots of applications.
If you're still applying, you're in trouble.
But what advice would you give to those working in their startups and applying for the Accelerator? Those who will get in and be working through the problems that they're going to be faced with, and with the help that they're going to be given. Yeah,
I think there's like that chart of the startup. Like everyone goes through the trough of sorrow. You'll have like setbacks. We certainly did. I think just keep on going, like know that it's possible would be one, but also definitely any time, like for any given hour, time spent talking to customers, especially early, is always a good investment. That's something that we could have done a lot more of. So yeah, I think those would be the biggest things, is like talk to your customers and just like don't give up would be the biggest ones. Listen to the people, listen to Matt when he tells you that your website flow is terrible and should be faster. It'll be a good time. I think if you've applied for the program, just go in there with a teachable mindset, and that's what we did. We learned a lot, even though on some respects, like in our specific industry, we know everything really well. We know the nitty gritty of how our businesses transact. Building a startup and building a website is different, and so I think having good people around that we could get advice off was super helpful.
Excellent, thank you.
No worries at all.
Really great way to finish that off.
Yeah, awesome.
We have a few minutes before the parking officers hit the streets. So does anyone have a question for Keiran? Anyone at all? Have we been through them all? Yep.
I already asked a question earlier, so it's Shannon will respond, but I'll ask another one. Because I just listened to you talk, business sales.
Yep.
The brand was already established, they talk about having a unique brand and positioning it.
Yep.
How'd you go about, was there much history about businesssales.com.au before you guys acquired it in terms of the company, and how'd you go about sort of establishing that in the marketplace?
So the website had been running for decades, for ages. They hadn't done much with it, and so we essentially carpet bombed it. When we logged into the website, we didn't keep a single line of their code. We completely redid the logo. We just redid everything. Also, as I mentioned, we bought it. So when we were doing that, we didn't buy it because of the brand. We didn't even really ask about it. We were we wanted to do it our way. So yeah, we just started with, so we hired an external firm to help us with this, to help us with positioning and thinking about it. And so they helped us with the customer interviews, and then figuring out, it's like They described it as like the seed. So like, what's the core thing that we do better than anyone? And then everything kind of comes out of that. So for us, it was it was like movement. And so we wanted business owners to feel like there was a sense of progress. So yeah, that kind of came, I don't know, if you look at the website, you can see there's some cool effects of that. Like our logo is an arrow. We have a lot of like moving parts on our website that just subtly move to kind of reinforce that. But ultimately, yeah, we didn't keep any of the brand elements. We just thought we'll just completely start again. And fortunately, like BusinessSales, before we bought it, wasn't a huge brand. So we don't think it had much brand equity. People, it's funny, like people often say to us, oh yeah, I've heard of you. But I kind of wonder if they actually have. It just feels like a name that you should know, right? Like BusinessSales just feels like something that should have existed forever, which is one of the reasons that we really wanted it. But yeah, to circle back, we didn't really keep anything of their branding elements. Yeah.
Anyone else want to throw their hand up and ask a question?
Is there a reason why you didn't just say, can I buy your domain name, and you bought the whole business?
Yeah, so well, part of it was like we were interested in the database, which turned out to be complete spam. They didn't have reCAPTCHA on their like sign up form, so like literally we actually paid Ian's daughter to go through I bulk deleted a whole bunch of email addresses that were obviously spam, and then she went through like 6,000 of these manually, just going, this is junk, this is junk, this is junk, this is junk. Came down to like a couple of hundred. The reason, but also like, I think it's a different frame of reference, and particularly what we knew about the sellers, they'd been in business sales, like they'd kind of been around the industry as well, and so they knew how to value a business based on turnover and profit, whereas sometimes you look at people who value a domain and they're just like, oh, I want 100 grand for my domain. And so they didn't do that. So they did it based on the profitability of the existing business, which, because they hadn't really been giving it much attention, was pretty cheap. And so, yeah, we thought, we'll never know, right? Like maybe if we said, oh, we just want the domain, we would have got it cheaper, but we thought that was a better way to do it. And so, yeah, we got all of that with the business, not just the domain.
We have one gentleman at the back first.
When I look at the business, I'm medical. It feels like it has the possibility of being dominant within the marketplace, like car sales and, you know.
Yeah.
Did you considering the long-term sort of, you know, the whole cold start and what we've discussed, did you consider venture capital as part of that? How did that discussion go down?
Yeah, so far we've been fortunate that we could fund it all ourselves. We also wanted to be able to make some very specific, like, industry-based decisions. At this stage, we don't have any plans to raise capital. We're happy to, like, we can fund it ourselves. That might change in the future. I don't know, but yeah, we've thought about it. But in the end, we were able to fund the business ourselves. We offer a few services. Service revenue is really good. It's good margin, allows us to cover the costs and keep the business operating. So yeah, for now, we don't have any plans to. But yeah, that may change. We'll see.
Keiran, do you have a question?
Yes, please. Keiran, I might have missed it in your presentation, but data analytics of trends and things like that, do you look at that as being an adjunct to what businesses are doing, or does Finder or one of those companies contact you for data?
Yeah, I think I think there's definitely a place for better data in the industry. So yeah, I think we'll look at that in the future. Businesses are really heterogeneous. They're really unique. So it's really hard to actually compare businesses because there's so many different factors about like the owner's involvement and even within an industry, right? Like you could say, I think my favourite example is that in the Australian standard industry classification, bookkeeping and accounting and auditing are all the same thing, but they're not. And so that makes like large-scale data analytics a little bit problematic. We have some views on that. We've built our system to potentially help with that, but I think that's a down the track kind of scenario. There is no like core logic for businesses. You can't just like, and part of that is the data availability. So it's currently really hard to find out what a business actually sells for because everyone signs confidentiality agreements. There's no stamp duty, at least in New South Wales, so you can't even like the old days, how CoreLogic got all their sales data before they were dominant was they would literally go to a freedom of information request and get the stamp duty amount, and then they could figure out what the property sold for. At least that's how the broad strokes of how I think they did it. You can't do that. There's no public register of transactions. And even the way that businesses are sold. Sometimes you can do what's called a company sale, where you sell I'm sure you probably know this, but you sell the shares, and then sometimes you sell the goodwill, and so all of that makes it complicated. That's not to say that it's not solvable, but we're not actively solving it, trying to think about it at the moment. But I think in time, that would be something that's really valuable for the community at large. So yeah.
So do you think there's like a chat bot area where it's in documents at the moment that business AI, you can have all these various inputs and they're variable because of business, but there's a place that AI could come up with a formula?
I know a bit about AI, and from what I can tell, like the data is so unstructured and so disparate, and there'd be no, like even like all the industry bodies, like no one has a big enough pool of data. You know, you might find someone who's like, oh, we've got records of like 5,000 business transactions, which in the scheme of like, you know, they trained OpenAI on like 1 trillion data points. So in the scheme of it, like I don't think there's a big enough sample to effectively train an AI model on. We've like, I'm sure everyone's played with ChatGPT, right? I've asked it to value businesses, and like I say, I'm a registered valuer, and it's terrible. It does everything because all the most information is written about public companies, which are valued very differently to private companies, and so it tries to take a public company approach to private companies. It sounds really confident, and it's completely wrong. And so I don't think. From where we sit today with the data sets available, I don't think there's anyone who could make a proper working model. Yeah.
Hi, just quickly, in the early days, did you guys talk to other marketplaces about your marketplace?
No, probably should have. No. So we were very we wanted to build something specific to our niche. We knew it, we didn't really go out talking to other marketplaces or anything like that. We read, I learned by reading, so I read a lot. Like I read multiple books on how to build it. I read lots of the stories of how they built it. I think my favorite one was car sales. There's because they're public, all their records go back ages. So I read their prospectus and how they got started, how they overcame the cold start problem, how they got cars and all of that. So yeah.
So are you saying that people who are building marketplaces should go and talk to other founders building marketplaces early?
Yeah, probably. I think understanding the business model and just getting that advice of how to overcome the cold start problem, that's probably the biggest thing with a marketplace. So asking other people how they did that, or reading about how other people have done that, and then applying that to your context, right? As I said, the Uber example, we were never going to fake stuff, but there's other strategies that we picked up from other businesses. Yeah, and most founders are pretty happy to help, so that's helpful as well.
And there's obviously a huge everything marketplaces community around the world, but is there a community within Australia that you're aware of? No. I joined the Everything Marketplaces community, and I've caught up with a couple of the Australian people from there, but no, there's nothing that I've found in Australia.